Welcome to Breaking the Silence in conversation with, and today we have Barbara Lamb. Barbara and I have been friends for a number of years. We go back all the way to Newbury Park when we used to have
Oh,
amazing MUFON meetings there, and I'm still having a problem with my voice.
yes.
It just figures. We had a really hard time getting a good connection across the internet. Took us 5 times to finally connect. So it was very odd. It's never happened before. But Barbara, thank you so much for being a guest on our show and having a conversation. It's been a long time since we talked, and I'd really love to catch up on all the things you've been up to.
Yes, a lot of years and a lot of activity in the whole field of extraterrestrial encounters, primarily. So it's been a really interesting ride, and it's continuing. As a regression therapist, I'm still very active in regressing people to their encounters that they have had with extraterrestrial beings. And some of the people who've been coming to me, especially in the last very few years, have been wondering about themselves. They have a sense that they have a higher calling, and yet they may not know what that calling is. But that so many people now are having a sense that there's something that they're supposed to be doing here on Earth in this lifetime. And they may feel that maybe they really haven't been doing whatever that special something is. And so they come for regressions to find out that what their main purpose is. And so very often through this work, I have discovered that there are people who are walk in personalities. And that means that they were a soul either in an extraterrestrial realm or perhaps a more spiritual celestial realm. But anyway, that soul has really, really wanted to come and give helpful work on earth because that soul and the souls with that one are very, very interested in humanity, very caring about us and very caring about the earth and wanting to save the earth from all the polluting that we're doing in so many different ways. So, anyway, these um, walk in people, these souls, uh, don't want to come and be reincarnated the way that we all do and start life as an infant in the mother's womb and then an infant and a toddler and a child and a teenager going through all of those years of growing up before they can really do their work. So, what they decide to do as a soul is to look around for another soul of a person living here as a human on earth. And that soul does not want to be in that life anymore. There may be a whole variety of reasons for that, but and that person whose soul doesn't want to be here anymore might be in his or her 30s or 40s or 50s, still with a good number of years left to do the work that is needed to be done. But anyway, these two souls get together and make an arrangement, a mutual agreement, totally mutual, nothing forced about it, and that the incoming soul will come to Earth just at the moment when the outgoing soul is leaving that body. So they make a soul exchange, and the incoming soul now is a walk in, living in the body of that original person. The original person might be male or might be female. I've worked with uh, both genders who have had this process happen. So then the walk in gets to live in that body of the original person and do the work that the walk in came to do. This is one of the several indications that some of the extraterrestrial species are very, very caring and concerned about humanity. I think that generally people tend to not hear about this part of it, about the extraterrestrial phenomenon that includes these very helpful people who come to be here. So that walk in uh, has, of course, tremendous changes to make from being in a whole other realm, maybe as a whole different type of being, and then suddenly, making the exchange with the soul of the person here, and then living the life in a human body here on earth and with the spouse of that original person and the children, if that person had had children, and the original family of that person. So, I mean, just you can imagine just tremendous changes that the walk in soul has to adapt to. But with the several of them, or probably about 15 or so now that I know of walk ins and have worked with in regression therapy, they do make that adjustment and they heal up whatever the original person had going wrong with the body. And very often there were quite a few uh, conditions that had been plaguing that original person. So the walk in with lots of insights from higher realms is usually able to find ways to get that healing here and then go on and live the life of that person. So, as you can imagine, the people who were in the life of that person
Mm.
who did the soul exchange, uh, they suddenly realized that this person is really, really different. And in many cases, the incoming being is so different, so differently oriented, um, that if there was a marriage with the original person, very often those marriages do not
Mm.
continue to work because the new one is just so different, that, uh, and that it just does not really work with the original spouse. But with the children, if there had been children with the original person, uh, that very often works wonderfully well because the original person before leaving um, might have been infirmed or very low in energy or depressed and not really terrifically active with the children. But the new one, the walk in, who comes in and gets healing for whatever the physical conditions had been, that one is full of zip and zing and vigor and enthusiasm and energy and health. And so it's a much more enjoyable, fun mother for the
Or
children to be
father.
growing up with. So that's very nice when that can work out.
Mhm.
Yeah, or maybe it's a father who has been a walk in because male walk ins happen also. And the children would suddenly realize, wow, dad is just so much more fun and really wants to go out and play with us and has seems so much energy that he never did have before. And so it's really a benefit for everybody
Wow.
in that situation. And some people have wondered, well, what about the memories of
I was
the
gonna ask
life
about
of
that.
that person who's been, yeah. Well, it's very interesting because since the walk in is coming into the body and brain, and the brain withholds all of these memories of whatever the original person experienced in his or her life. Therefore, the walk in has access to those memories because of the brain. However, the walk-in does not have real emotional attachment to those memories. So it's very handy if they're at a family reunion or gathering of friends and people are referring to things that happened years ago in the past, that the person, because of the brain, the person can remember that. Oh, yeah, they can access those memories, but they just wouldn't have very much feeling about that because the walk in didn't experience those things himself or herself. But they can get along that way. But anyway, the whole purpose of this is that there are beings out in space. We tend to call them aliens or extraterrestrials or even other dimensionals, and that many of them really, really want to be of help here to humanity and to the earth. And they know that they are constituted so differently physiologically that they would not be able to exist here.
Sure.
You know, they wouldn't be able to withstand bacteria and viruses and densities and pollutions and, you know, all the things
Yes,
that
it's
make it
amazing we
difficult for
survived.
us too, even even more for them. Yes, it is amazing. And they want to see us
Yes,
survive. They want to help us. They want to
yes,
raise the consciousness of humanity and and do it in any way that they can. So very often these walk-ins uh, become educators, not in the traditional school systems necessarily, but more likely in terms of their own channels on the internet or uh, podcasts, series of podcasts they do, interviewing other people who are being very helpful in raising the consciousness of humanity. And many of them do many activities, including individual counseling sessions with people to upgrade their consciousness and help them to get ready to do the process of ascension that allegedly is going on. And anyway, it's very often to be really opening the horizons of people to the extraterrestrial reality and to many of the other beings out there who are very benevolent and very caring. I think that generally speaking, when people think of the alien phenomenon, that they tend to think very negatively, that these are
mhm.
very negative beings and they want to take over the world and they
It's a real
want to
problem. Yes.
torture people. And with, yeah, and then of course with the national security issues going on with Congress and the disclosure hearings, the emphasis is on national security, sort of assuming that these UFOs that we see are a
When in
tremendous
actuality, we are the
threat.
tremendous threat
And
to our own
it,
world.
yes, good for you, Steve. I
Um,
totally
sure, we're
agree. I think we are
extraterrestrials
the
too
threat. So, anyway,
to them.
yes. Well, that's a good point of view. To them, yes, we are the strangers. We are the weird ones. And can you imagine how it would be to be a different kind of being coming to Earth and going into a crowd of humans and all the different looks, hair and glasses and no hair and no glasses and different skin colors and different styles of everything. And just, it would be pretty startling, I would think,
Sounds like a bad
to be
acid
with a
trip.
group of humans. If you right, if you
No,
were
I think
coming
I
from
can,
somewhere else. So any
and I have a good reason for it because I remember, you know, going to school and just absolutely being freaked out, looking at my body and looking around me at the kids there and realizing that I didn't belong here and that this was some kind of mistake or something along that lines. And later on, understood it, but I remember that.
Well, ah, that must have been
Many
profound.
people I've
Yeah. Uh-huh. And
I
you
know and that, I've interviewed, they all say the same thing, that they felt out of place as children and they didn't feel they fit in.
right.
I know you've heard that.
Yes. Oh, I've not only heard it, but I have
Sure.
worked with many people who do
Sure.
feel that. So I'd like to go on to talk about the starseed people. That's another category. Now, starseed people are born here, unlike the walk-ins are born from a regular human mother and father, and but they have had previous lifetimes as
Yes.
being
Mhm.
extraterrestrial beings. In fact, they very often have a whole long lineage of different lifetimes in which they have been various species of extraterrestrials. And this time, that soul has decided to be born right here as a full human, but with the influence and the knowledge of many of these other beings whom they had been in previous lifetimes. And also, these star seeds do have a lot of visits with their extraterrestrial counterparts, and they welcome those visits and they learn from those beings. And partly they're here to share the perspective and the knowledge from these extraterrestrial beings. So, star seeds, just like what you have mentioned for yourself, Steve, uh, they also feel very different than anybody else, even different from anybody
Yeah.
in their own family, as well as all the other kids they ever get to go to school with or get to have contact with or see. And so they automatically feel different because they really are coming from a different perspective. So they will notice things like, oh, it feels like it's so slow. Everything is so slow here, so dense, so sort of difficult to move relative to wherever they came from, where the density was very, very different, much lighter in most cases. Um, and they also have a lot of abilities which are apparent from a very, very young age. In other words, they have a full range of
Mhm.
psychic abilities, and they use without realizing that most people don't have them. So they have psychic hits about this and that and other things. They can foretell what is happening. They can go into a room and have that kind of medical intuitiveness. In other words, they notice that, oh, that lady over there has a stomach issue. Boy, she's really uncomfortable. Or that man over there has a big pain in the back of his neck. Or this person over there has something going on with her leg. And, without those things being apparent. But the starseed person has the ability to just automatically know those things, just tune right in. They also have a wonderful ability for healing people. And when they're children, if they see a wounded animal or a wounded bird, very often they'll just go and scoop up that wounded animal or bird and cup it in their little hands and send energy to it and send love. They're very aware of sending love from their hearts. And then very soon, that little animal or that little bird will just sort of move away and walk away or fly away and seeming to be absolutely fine. So it's really a wonderful thing. Some of these star seeds have also been known to heal people in their families. If somebody has a flu or a cough or an earache or whatever, the little child, little star seed, will just go and say,
Hmm.
"Oh, let me help you," and will put their little hands on that person and send wonderful energy and heal that person right then and there. So I wish we all had one like that.
Yeah.
I would love to have one of those in my home. That's for sure. Uh, but anyway, the star seeds are here to upgrade consciousness and educate people and broaden their horizons about the different dimensions of reality, the different many groups of extraterrestrials, particularly the benevolent ones who really care about us. And they're broadening our horizons to the whole cosmos and life in the cosmos and to the different dimensions of reality and to the life of the soul. And the life of the soul is something that I know that I never grew up with. And I think even now, probably most people don't grow up with any discussions at all
No, they don't.
about the soul, and that the fact that
Yeah.
what, what we really are is ongoing, continuing souls who have different chapters. That means different lifetimes, like you and I are having right now, lifetimes as humans on Earth. But in other incarnations, we are free to choose to be other types of beings, which we call extraterrestrials. And I think that once we realize that,
Oh, yes.
it's actually
God, yes,
helpful.
absolutely.
You know, the picture is the picture is so much bigger than I grew up with, that's for sure, and I think bigger than most people even today are growing up with. So the third category of people I have been discovering in all of this extraterrestrial work is the category of ET human hybrids. So we have a lot of these hybrids among us, but they look like regular humans, so they don't stand out. They don't seem freaky. Uh, they don't get particular notice given to them. But anyway, there are two major parts of the ET human hybrid program. One of them is for the hybrids who will be living on the ship rather than living on Earth. So, what happens is that eggs are
Mhm.
taken from a human woman and sperm taken from a human man. And if the woman is married, it probably is taken from her husband. If she does not have a partner, it would be taken from some other man of the choice of the extraterrestrial beings. Anyway, the eggs and sperm are taken, and then on the ship, they are mixed together, combining an embryo. And into that embryo, there is added DNA from not only one extraterrestrial species, but usually, at least with the hybrids I know, they might have DNA from two or three or four or five or six different races of extraterrestrials, all mixed into that one little embryo. And then that embryo is placed in the mother's womb, the woman who contributed her eggs originally. And she gestates that embryo for maybe 1.5 or 2.5 months. And she realizes, of course, during that time that she's pregnant, and she will usually have that
Yep.
validated by a doctor.
Mhm.
Oh, yes, indeed, you are pregnant. And it's a real pregnancy. It can be seen in the ultrasound and everything. And then after a while, like 2.5 months or more, um, suddenly
It's
the
gone.
woman wakes up and realizes, "Ooh,
Yep.
I don't feel pregnant anymore." And she'll usually go to the doctor because that's confusing, of course. And the doctor will verify. Yep, there's no zygote, no uh, embryo growing in your utero. It must have pullen off from the wall of the uterus and become absorbed into the rest of your system. That's the thing they
Or this
typically
sometimes
say.
happens, which
But
is
it
what
is
they
a
said to Deborah Cobble. Yeah. "You'll have more children, don't worry
yes,
about it. This sometimes
yes,
happens." Because that happened to her.
yeah, that's right. So, and yes, right. And of course, doctors don't know, in most cases, don't know about this whole phenomenon that has been occurring. So, anyway, once the embryo is removed from the woman's uterus, it is taken onto the ship and
Right,
gestated in a tank of fluid. And that tank of fluid is large enough to hold a full size
right,
in utero baby. And that tank is usually set among other tanks with other fetuses, embryos, and fetuses growing in them. And they're all connected with wires and links of various kinds to what seems to be sort of a monitoring machine. And then when that baby has grown full term in this artificial womb, it is removed and wrapped in clothing and then raised on the ship and will probably remain the rest of its life as a hybrid on the ship, assisting various types of extraterrestrial beings in whatever their work is. In some cases, maybe they live on other planets with beings whose genetics they have as well. Uh, and so, human people who've had this happen, males and females, very often are taken on board the ship to meet their hybrid baby or to even see it gestating in the tank, and then months later taken to meet and hold and nurture the baby who has been taken out of the tank and being raised now on the ship. And different women, of course, respond in different ways to that. Some of them just have so much maternal instinct that they take right to that. And even though the baby looks kind of sickly and weak and bigger eyes than usual, and
it doesn't
it's
matter.
a
No,
little different
it
than
doesn't
human.
to them, and, I've experienced
Yeah,
this myself, so
but yes. So you can imagine that there
yeah,
are a variety of reactions that human people have to this. Some people, some of the women I know just have
really,
not wanted anything to do with little being. Yeah. More often than not, though, the human mother, when presented with this baby, it's a shock, of course, when told that this is your baby and we need to have you love and nurture this baby. Some of them are able to do that wonderfully and are very open to continuing to know that baby as the baby continues to develop and grow into a toddler and a child and teenager. And some of the women I have worked with uh, have a good relationship, even with a hybrid child who is in the early 20s or more. And that's a very nice thing. So some are very, very open to this. Some women have found that they have 25, or in one case,
wow.
35 hybrid children. So many of the people I've regressed who didn't even know they had a hybrid child and had forgotten about that missing pregnancy that had happened sometime before, had not contributed that to anything of this sort. Um, that anyway, they're taken and they are taken into a whole room full of hybrid children of various ages and various types, all being raised together, being educated together, being fed together. So they don't have a family situation the way that we do with a mother and a father and siblings, but they do have this sort of group way of being raised together, everything together, and lots of care. And they seem to be doing well. They seem to be happy. They seem to be alert and being educated and being fed well, developing well, considering that they are this mixture of human and extraterrestrial. So that's one part of the hybrid program. And then there's another part which impacts us very favorably, and that is that the same thing, the sperm is taken from a man and eggs from a woman and combined into a zygote. And then that zygote or embryo gets added extraterrestrial genetics and then implanted into the woman. And in this case, she will carry that embryo fetus through the whole 9 months of pregnancy. It's not removed. And she gives birth to that baby the way that we give birth to all of our human babies. So that hybrid is living here on Earth right from the moment of birth, or I should say, life in the womb, right onward through the whole life. And another way that this can happen for a woman is that she might be already pregnant with a regular human pregnancy. And then in about month 7 or 8 during the pregnancy, she is taken and injected by some of the beings, injected with a mixture which includes their extraterrestrial genetics, goes right through the wall of the abdomen, right through the wall of the uterus, and right into the developing fetus. So that a couple of months later, when that fetus is born, it is already hybridized. So it can happen in those two different ways. So the newborn baby, is
Mhm.
raised just like a regular baby, looks totally human, might have a couple of things different in the inside of that person, different organs in different places, or different blood types, or different bone types, or muscle consistency. Those are some of the ones that have come through the work that I have done. But anyway, they are raised as a normal baby, normal child, live in a family, and from a very, very early age, these hybrid children have a very strong sense that their real family somehow
That's
is
correct.
out there in space. Now, yeah, and it's a really, really strong, pervasive feeling with them. And of course, when they mention that to their families insist, no, no, your family is, we are your family. I watched you being born. I know that you are ours. And yet the child will continue through the childhood and even through the rest of his or her life, will have that sense, real, my real family, the ones I'm really
Yes.
connected with, are out
The
there
stars.
in this. And they'll very often look at this guy and just say, why aren't you here with me? They may be having a perfectly good family, perfectly decent upbringing, and yet they have this longing for the ones that they
That's
came
very
from.
true.
And from a very from a very early age, even infancy, they are visited by some of those beings whose genetics they have, that true family, according to them. And from a very early age, they welcome these visits from these unusual looking beings
Mhm.
from our point of view. Uh, they welcome the
Yeah.
visits, and they feel very, very loved by those beings.
Well, of course.
You're relating to all of this, Steve?
Since day one, and I could get in the backyard by myself at night, I'd be staring at the stars. You couldn't pull me away from them. and and I knew at night I
Uh-huh.
had these people who that came and took me somewhere where I could play with other children like me and children that weren't exactly like me. And I know you know what I'm talking about, so,
Yes, yes,
and it was
I
kind of the
do.
secret life, and you weren't supposed to talk to about it to your
Yeah.
parents. Uh,
Yes, yes, children get so shut off about that, so discouraged
yeah, well,
very
and it
early on.
it's protection.
Even
Knowing how our culture works and our society works, and when a child comes and says, Mom, my
yeah,
friends came last night and we went up into the sky, into this neat building in the sky, and we played with these strange looking children and we made holograms and they floated around in the air and these beings watched us. That you're pretty much going to be sent somewhere to be analyzed and corrected, you know. It's just, yeah. So you knew
unfortunately, yes.
because they told you, "You don't talk about this."
Right. Well, and I think for most people who experience these things, it's very, um, it's a very lonely situation that they have no one. So often,
True.
they have no one to talk to about these things. If they know that they happen, they know that they're real, they know it isn't just imagination, and yet it can be very lonely to be alone in this, and know that other people
No, they
don't
sure
want to hear
don't.
about it. So that's a big part of your life that gets, phew, sort of
A
denied
real important part of your
again and
life,
again, by
you know?
other people. Very, very important. Yeah. So I think it's so wonderful that you're talking about it now. I don't know
Well,
how long you've been talking about it, but I'm very
since
pleased
about
that you are now.
1994, of course, I met I knew before that. I knew the minute I read Communion, and then everything fell into place in 1994. I met Yvonne in 1994. I got a phone call late one night, Whitley Strieber from Whitley Strieber because he had seen my artwork, and I remember one of the things he said to me uh, was, "How did you know?" And I said, "How did I know what?" He says, "Your artwork. You know what you've seen." And I just said, "What's
Uh,
I draw what I experience." Um, and then, of course, we did a lot of
uh,
television programs, and I worked for Sightings. I worked for History Channel, but I also was interviewed a great deal about my experiences. And then, of course, um, I ran into a lot of trouble as a result with all the stuff you hear about, including, threats against my life, my family, my career. They made it very clear by going to the
uh,
studios and telling the studios that I was in trouble with the law, and it wasn't in their best interest to work with me. So I experienced all that, and the more I poured it on, the more visible I was, and the more I did, up to about 1999. Uh, the last straw was going to the studios, and my late wife panicked and said, "You get out of this. I don't want you talking to any of these people anymore. Not Roger Lear, not Vaughn, not Whitley, not anyone. I want you out of this, or I'm leaving." So I did, and I gave away all my artwork and everything, and
uh,
I left. But I started talking about
oh,
it again in
oh,
2017 when I made a film about my experience called "But Something Is There." Yeah,
good, good. You must have felt it would be more likely received then in
maybe, I mean,
2017.
the thing is I feel that I am supposed to talk about it now. That's always been the idea, but it had to happen at the
Yeah,
right time,
right.
and this is the right time because
Yes.
we're reaching
Uh,
critical mass here on this planet, and you're absolutely right about raising consciousness, moving to a higher vibration, realizing that we're not these bodies, that you don't listen to the scientists that tell you when you die and your brain stops functioning, you no longer exist. That is very uh, it's wrong of them to do that. They have no proof of that, yet we have plenty of proof to the contrary. So it's a vital time that
oh,
people,
yes.
yeah, they
More
need
and
to
more all the
understand
time.
this because I think it would relieve a lot of stress. And you were talking about the hybrids being raised on ship and how happy they were, even though they didn't have families. Um, they're raised in a no stress, non judgmental reality. From the day we're born, we're in a high stress, judgmental reality. And we're, the humans that are here, even our own parents, think they know how things work. And here you are, this kid that knows how they work differently. So it's difficult. Yeah.
Right. Well, what a challenge you have been through,
Oh
and
yeah.
others like you who have experienced these things their whole lives. And yeah, so
Sure.
back to the hybrids again. I think the hybrids are serving a wonderful purpose because they're here to help in any way that they can. And they're highly developed people,
Hmm.
highly intelligent, and have a full range of psychic skills, like the others we've talked about, um, and healing abilities and counseling abilities, guidance abilities. So they too do their classes and podcasts and webinars and individual conferences and individual work with many people. And fortunately, because of the internet now, we have more star seeds and walk-ins and hybrids. Um, broadcasting. In some
Hmm.
cases, giving interviews like you are. In some cases, giving more uh, productions themselves, disclosing more information of their own from their own perspective and their own experiences. So I think we're very fortunate that we have many people amongst us. We certainly do here in the United States, and I am sure that we must have many people in other countries who are walk-ins and starseeds and hybrids, and certainly more people who are experiencers of extraterrestrial visitations. Um, I think if we could actually know the final number of that, it would be amazing. I mean, there was a Roper poll back in 1991, and they figured that there were 5 million Americans, at least 5 million Americans, who were having these extraterrestrial visits. And then in 1998, I believe it was, there was another poll, and they claimed that there were 8 million Americans having these experiences.
Yeah.
And that's just America. So when you extrapolate that worldwide, it's certainly multi millions. We don't know how many multi millions of people all over the globe, who are having these experiences. So, because it is such a major thing going on and affects so many people, I think it's really wonderful that you, Steve, are bringing out all of this information, not only yourself, from your own experiences, but
Sure.
doing interviews like this one, where other people who are working in the field can share what they know. Because I mean,
Oh
we
yes.
we really
And
ought
it
to
has
know
to
about
happen
this. It seems to me.
gradually, not all at once. That's been something that I know the visitors are very adamant about, and this whole process of disclosure that so many are working on right now, dumping it all on the public overnight, I do not believe is the correct way to do it. I think the way you are doing it, the way I'm doing
Oh,
it, and
right.
everyone else, and all the people that are brave enough to come forward and tell their story directly to camera, not just this way, but actually in the films that we make, they tell their entire story. And none of them feel
Yes.
abducted. They all feel part of a program. They all feel part of it, and this is why they're having the
No,
visits is
that's
because they've been
very
part of it since before they were born. And I hear this over and over again. If you watch our shows, you'll hear them
yes.
say it over and over again. It's so consistent, and which gives it a lot of validity, I think.
Oh, oh, yes. So it's a blessing, I think, that more and more of this
Yeah,
part of reality is coming out,
yeah.
is being recognized. And it's been gradual
Hmm.
since the early 1990s, when I got into all of this in 1991. And it's been gradual. There's been more and more different aspects of the
Hmm.
phenomenon coming out. Uh, and there are people who just don't care, who are not interested in it, who sort of know about it in a general sense, but they don't really follow it. And yet there are many other people who do follow it. They want to know more and more and more,
It is.
and more is coming
I
out.
find
So
that there's a whole
that's
camp
a
that's
good
just
thing.
really just
Yeah,
interested in the technology and being able to get hold of it, and they're more interested in what they can get instead of what they can give.
right. Yes. Well, and the technology part of it certainly
Well,
is
sure.
intriguing, and I can understand why lots and lots of people are involved in that whole aspect. And for me, it's been more the
The
personal
spiritual.
aspect that has been capturing my attention and my work. And I've been so pleased to have developed a means, as some others have too, uh, of regressing people to finding out the details of their encounters, or perhaps of one encounter. But when we get to the details of one encounter, that usually opens up so much for the person. So sometimes they want more regressions to other encounters, and sometimes that's enough. They've learned so much from the first one and recognized, even if they had not known it before, that they have had many experiences with these same beings and with other beings too, uh, since just about as early as they can
Yeah,
remember. Some of these encounter experiences happen really, really young, like when the baby is still in the hospital
in the
nursery,
crib.
or even in the one man I worked with, the first experience that he had was when he was still
Wow.
in his mother's womb, and a being came and sent sort of healing energy through the abdomen of the mother and into the fetus. And he was conscious enough. He was probably about 8 months along or so, 8.5 months along in development in the womb, and had quite a lot of awareness and consciousness. And he was able to hear this being who came on the outside of the mother. Mother was probably sleeping at night, and sent warm energy through the wall of the abdomen and the wall of the uterus into the fetus. And the fetus described it as feeling like, oh, this wonderful, warm, soft feeling coming into my body. It's really, really nice, comforting, warm, reassuring. And then he actually heard the
Hmm.
voice, or it may have been telepathic, um, saying, I am here because you have a problem. You have a congenital hole in your heart. And if you are born with this hole in your heart, you will not be able to live very long at all. And I want you to live a nice long lifetime. So I'm putting an invisible electromagnetic strip over the hole in your heart to contain the blood. So that helped that baby to be born and live. And that baby kept on growing and thriving through toddler years and childhood and teenage years. And probably it seemed about every year or so, that same extraterrestrial being came to
Yeah.
refurbish the electromagnetic strip over the hole in his heart. So that baby grew up to be a big 6'4", strapping, strong man, lots of strength, and it did a lot of physical labor for his work, his career, and was able to live all of those years doing wonderful work because of the intervention of that particular extraterrestrial being. So many wonderful things happen to many, many people who have these compliments, these accountings, these experiences with the extraterrestrial beings. Many, many healings are done right there on a
Oh,
medical
yeah,
type
with
table
light.
on the ship. Uh, yes, with light, various ways of you using light. And sometimes the healings are done right
Mhm.
here at the person's home. I know of a number of incidents where a person was really, really sick in bed with a particular malfunction and pain, and that beings would come in the middle of the night. The person would wake up just enough to be aware that something was happening and that there were others there, and they usually didn't
No.
stay conscious for very long. But anyway, when they wake up in the morning, whatever had been malfunctioning in their bodies now was completely healed. And it must have been done by those beings. So when we realize that, that kind of puts a new look
Oh,
on
yeah.
the whole
I
abduction
mean, people
scenario.
say, what gives them the
Yeah.
right to take you against your will?" And I always say, "Well, what makes you think it's against my will? What makes you think that I look at it that way?" And, uh, they talk about the instruments and the terrible,
Good for
scary
you.
things and the pain you feel. Well, also what I know is that the way they take care of pain is they put you in a hypnotic state. They cancel it, they turn it off, and sometimes it its effectiveness wears off, like it can under hypnosis, and you wake up briefly and you feel something, and then they put their hand on your head and you go back under again and everything's fine. Even they make mistakes, even things don't always
Yes.
work. Um, it's it I always
Sure.
used to think that you were they drugged me somehow, but I realize now that no, it was more like a hypnotic state. And sometimes they let you wake up to see them just long enough because they want you to remember it and they want you to slowly but surely become accustomed to their presence so that maybe one day could happen
Yes.
face to face, fully conscious. And this is what I'm told, and I know that
Yes.
also now that I'm older, that my communication with them is telepathic quite often. It's like I can ask to speak to them. As crazy as it sounds, I thought it was my own head talking to myself, but they made it really clear it wasn't, and I can talk to them. I'll even stop for a minute and say, "Are you there?" And they go, "Yes, we're here." They're always nearby, and they always have been
Ah,
since I've been a
great.
kid. And I remember so much in the 80s and 90s, waking up with little marks and little needle punctures and things like that. But what I come to understand now is that,
Yes.
I'm sort of like their child and I'm very important to them and as all of us are, and that they maintain us. As you said, they heal us and they repair things and they
Yes.
watch out for us. And so I never looked at it as abduction. I don't even like I don't like the word.
Oh, that's good. I,
Humans abduct
I don't
people
like the word
against their
either.
will, not the visitors.
Just, right. I
Oh,
tend to
yeah, sure.
use the word encounter because it really is an encounter. But yeah, I don't like to use the word alien because some of them are so benevolent. I would not want to think of them as alien. And an abduction, as you say, just shows that it's completely against your will. But you see, ultimately, it is not against your will, because what I have come to understand with the help of some of these beings is that
Hmm.
we as a soul, before we incarnate into this lifetime,
That's
we have
correct.
made an agreement with the souls of some of those beings that we will cooperate with them among doing all the other things we're going to be doing in this lifetime.
Hmm.
And we have agreed to that. And just like everything else that our soul has decided to experience and to be working on in this lifetime, we forget. We forget those things consciously. And it's the same with this. We forget that we had made that agreement with the beings
Hmm.
before we came in. So it's actually a
Yeah,
soul contract. And that's a serious thing. So you don't just break that just willy nilly, just because it's inconvenient or it's frightening. You carry on with that commitment. And the beings have told me that if a person really, deeply, sincerely, completely does not want to be having these experiences anymore, they can
they tend to honor
end
it.
the
Yes,
contract. But yeah, but they have to really, really mean that, okay,
I
no
know
more.
people that have done that.
I'm not.
So you once told me that you
Yeah.
had an experience with the praying mantis.
Well, I've had the experience of having been
Oh,
a praying mantis in some of my
I sent
previous,
you a I sent you a
quite long
painting I
ago
just did
lifetimes.
in an email that I've been sharing with experiencers of the praying mantis that I saw recently. Um, I've never seen one
Oh,
before,
oh,
and
wonderful. Thank you. I was,
there he was, and he looked at me and said, "I know you can see me. I know you're looking at me." Uh, Something along that lines, and it just burned in my mind, and so went to my studio and got out a canvas and painted. It's an impression of what I
oh,
felt.
good. Oh, I look forward to that. But before I realized that I had been a mantis being in some long ago previous lifetimes, before that, whenever I was doing a regression and somebody was encountering a mantis being, I would always ask for, really
Mhm.
detailed descriptions of that, not only what the being looked like, but what the being seemed like. And I was building up over some years the opinion that the mantis beings, are really
Yes.
very wise, very, very informed, very intelligent, and that they often
Yes.
seem to be in charge of some of the other beings are doing with the person on the ship, and that there seemed to be this pervading, kind of a wise goodwill that was emanating from them, and keeping everything going the way
Yes,
it
in
should be
order.
going smoothly, and
Mhm.
given, and extra help given to the person who had been taken for this. And so I had been developing a real liking for them, plus the fact that one of my clients, whom I worked with for probably at least 20 regressions, maybe more, she continued again and again to be taken for these experiences by a praying mantis being. And it was always the same being, totally white, being very, very tall, very, very thin, very long arms, and the extra
Mhm.
fold of the arms, too. And that it was very often that same one who would be the one to come and take her. And after a while, she realized that whenever that would happen, oh, here
Yeah.
he is again. This is going to be all right. You know? And as she learned to develop trust in that, whereas when she first encountered a mantis being with a group of other beings who were shorter, when she was age 4, she was okay with the little
Little
ones who
grays.
were
Yep.
about her size, the little gray ones. Yeah, because they were about her size, and she was intrigued by their really big black eyes. But anyway, she thought they were okay. But then she looked up and saw this tall mantis being and said, "Well, I
Yeah.
can't go with him. He's a
Big
big
bug.
bug, a big bug." And she continued to think of mantis beings as being big bugs,
Yeah.
sort of a derogatory tone, until we did enough regressions for her being taken by that being to some very favorable, very helpful experiences. And that was really wonderful. And there was one time one weekend when she was babysitting for her 4-year-old granddaughter, and the mantis being came, the same big white one in a white long robe,
Ah.
and he took her and took the granddaughter, little 4-year-old, took them both and took them on out into space and put them on a big, what seemed to be a big white platform, not a ship, that was enclosed, but an open
Hmm.
platform, really big one. And they were in the middle of the platform. And the mantis being held the hand of my client, who was a woman in her 50s at the time, and then her little 4-year-old granddaughter. And they did sort of a ring around the rosy sort of dance. Um, and it was very, very playful, very lighthearted. And the little girl was laughing and absolutely delighted. And the grandmother, my client, was delighted. And it was a really lovely experience, showing that the mantis beings actually had that sense of tuning into a human childlike fun and introducing that. It was all a very safe, enjoyable
That's interesting.
experience. So anyway, learning more about the mantis beings, I've noticed another thing too, and this has happened again and again and again, that when a person has an encounter with
Hmm.
a mantis being, that very soon afterwards, like maybe even the very next day, that person at home will go out of the house and see on the front door handle or on the door handle of the car, will see a praying mantis insect, one of the ones that lives
Yeah,
here
we have them
on
here.
Earth. And this has happened so many times to people I personally know, that even with a couple of friends whom one night I was sharing about extraterrestrials and about the mantis beings, and they were particularly interested in the mantis beings, and I was as well. So we talked quite a bit about them, and they didn't even experience the mantis beings themselves. They just heard about it from me, and I was very enthused about it. And then the next day, one of them called. They lived together in the same house, and they said that when we were eating breakfast this morning, after last night, you're talking about the mantis beings, we looked out the windowsill, which was right there by where we were eating, and on the outside of the window, looking in at us, was a praying mantis insect looking directly at us. And they had done lots of gardening around that house and had never ever seen any praying mantis insects. But here was a real live one. So then I began to notice with so many other clients who actually had done regressions to experiences with the mantis beings, that they would find them around their house and on their doorstep or the roof of their car, the handle of their car. On one of them had a son who wore T-shirts every day, and they went out together to get into the car, and suddenly the son had a praying mantis being
Wow.
right on his chest on his T-shirt. So I mention this because it seems like there must be a real connection between these extraterrestrial beings and the human beings, and that they want us to know about them. So they said the best thing to do, send an
It makes me
insect
wonder about
that's
George
like
Knapp
them.
because I found out recently in an interview that he is fascinated by praying mantis. So much so, he started a praying mantis garden. He allows them to grow and multiply in his garden, and he's just fascinated with them. And it makes me wonder, is he involved and doesn't even know it? Yeah, I know.
That's what I wonder too. Could
Yeah.
it could very well be, because I know people who've gone for decades not
Oh,
having
yeah.
one clue that they have anything to do with this, and then suddenly something will trigger it, and they'll do a regression and realize, oh yeah, they're not only having this particular extraterrestrial experience, but they've had many others before this that they had not consciously aware of. Yeah, I think so. So there's another true story of, of myself. Um, this was a few years ago now, and I was living in
Yeah. Yeah.
Claremont,
Yeah.
California, with a house with a nice big patio and a big tree in the middle of the patio, picnic table there. I was sitting at the picnic table one afternoon talking on my cell phone with a friend from Washington State, a friend who was very interested in our space brothers and sisters, as he called them. And for some reason, we got talking about the mantis beings. And I probably went on for 20 minutes or so talking about them. And I recognized as I was doing that, that I was more and more happy and more enthused, like a tremendous feeling of enthusiasm while I was talking to my friend on the cell phone. And then suddenly, after 20 minutes or so, I looked down at my own lap, at my leg, my thigh, and there I had dark slacks on. And there, right in the middle of my thigh, was a baby praying mantis insect, a real live insect. And it was green. It was so sweet. It was green and it had
They're
the big
they're really
eyes, but they
something
were
at that
green
size.
eyes. Okay. And so here, this one was only about 1 inch long, but it was right on my lap. Now I thought, what are the chances of that? Because I had done lots of gardening in that yard before that for years and never had any encounter, any awareness of praying mantis insects. And yet, here, when I was talking about them, here was
Yeah,
one on my
it's
lap,
interesting phenomenon. It really is.
which is
I've heard it before.
so I, yeah, yeah. So there's a lot of that with clients I have worked with in regression who've had mantis experiences that they too say, yeah, that's amazing. I didn't know I had praying mantis insects, but I do. And they show up. They seem to be right where a person will be sure to see them. Like
Yeah.
looking in a window at the person on the doorknob as the person goes out or wherever. And they really seem to want to be
It's
noticed.
hard not to notice them when
That's for
they're sitting
sure.
there. They're quite a magnificent creature. So so Barbara,
Oh, yes, they're
you're
big.
going to the MUFON symposium, is that correct? Mhm.
Yes, in the middle
Yeah,
of July. Mhm. middle weekend
Deborah
in
Cobble is going to
Cincinnati.
be there. Uh,
Yes, apparently we will be speaking on Friday afternoon. Deborah Cobble and myself and another man will be talking about our own personal extraterrestrial experiences that we know about. And then on Saturday, I think it's
mhm.
Saturday noon, I'll be giving a lecture about the walk ins and starseeds and hybrids. And then at some point, I'm not sure just when, I'll be on a panel. So it'll be quite an engagement.
Wow. Wish I could wish I could be there. I really do. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience before we end this recording?
Yes, well, actually, people who know that I have involvement in this field will sometimes say, "What are the aliens like?" And I'll say, "Well, first of all, let's not call them aliens. And secondly, there are so many different types and they have very different agendas. So you cannot answer that question in
No.
one sentence. But of the many, many different types that I have become aware of in doing work all these years since 1991, it's been a lot of beings I have been aware of. And I'd say that the majority of the beings that I have been aware of through these regressions are really favorable. They're not only favorable, but they're benevolent. They want the best for humanity and for Earth. They want to help us, to help ourselves, and to help our Earth. And many of them say that they want us to evolve enough in consciousness and behavior so that we can be part of the great galactic federation of planets. So I am wishing that we as a humanity living here on Earth will evolve enough that we can live decently and peacefully here, respectfully, sharing our resources, raising in consciousness, treating the earth wonderfully well, treating each other wonderfully and well. And then eventually, hopefully, we will be able to be part of the great galactic
Me too.
federation.
I certainly can't argue with that. I think that's what so many of us hope for and are working towards, because there's so many people still on this planet, and they're literally lost among the stars, to quote Whitley. Um, and we need to wake them up to the stars and our connection with everything around us. Barbara, it's been wonderful
Yes, yes,
talking to you again, and I hope that we can stay in touch. I know
yes.
I will. I'll bug you from time to time. And yeah,
That's just
and
bug away.
hopefully we can have you back again to talk more about your wonderful experience doing all this wonderful work that you
Sure.
have been doing all these years. Um, it's incredible. Have you written a book?
Yes.
5 books. Okay,
Yes,
I
I've
will look
actually
those
written
up and make
5
sure that
books.
people know where to find those. So, uh,
Okay, they can find them, if they were interested, they can find them
okay.
easily on my website, which is
Hmm.
barbaralamregression.com. barbaralamregression.com. And it will have interviews on there and uh, a listing of my books and a way to order the books for a signed copy if people like signed copies, and lots of podcasts about
Yep.
different things to do with this subject. There's a lot on there. And then people, if they want to sign up for a regression, which many people do online, um, they can go to the website and then look for a place where they can leave a message for me, which will get forwarded to my email, and then I will answer it, and we will actually plan to do
Sounds
a
wonderful.
session. Yeah. So the website
Well, great.
does
I'll be
pretty
sure
much
to,
all
in
of
the
it.
edit, put up uh, the image of your website and of course the link itself. So, again, Barbara, thank you so much. This has been a wonderful
Wonderful.
conversation. I really appreciate it.
I have too. Thank you so much
Okay,
for what you
you're
do.
very
It's
welcome.
magnificent work.